We'll do what's best for the team, and we'll do what's best for you.
The Rich Eisen Show, coming to you weekdays from 3 to 5 p.m. here on KDUS AM 1060 and KDUS1060.com.
The Varsity Sports Show presents the Fitness Minute with Tyler Mayer. Get tips on staying healthy and active with locally renowned fitness guru Tyler Mayer. And now, here's Tyler.
All right, guys, welcome back. And we are joined by, we actually have 2 for 1 today. This is the Fitness Minute with Tyler Mayer. However, it's an extended version because of how well it plays in to our theme this week with the garden. We are joined by not only Tyler Mayer, but Tyler Mayer's wife, Jen Mayer, who's a holistic nutritionist and a personal trainer. Good morning to you both.
Good morning, Vince.
Thank you for having us, Vince.
Really, really glad that you both can join us today. This is kind of a big week because, you know, we talk about exercise and the activities that our young people can engage in and doing it properly, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about what goes in their bodies in the first place. So, Jen, maybe you can speak a little to that. And first of all, let's talk a little about how you came to be a holistic nutritionist.
Sure. Well, that started with my oldest son. When he, before we had our second one, he had some digestive issues. Looking back, maybe minor health concerns. As a mom, you kind of have your radar up, you know, and you're paying attention to what they're eating, what they're not eating. And, I kind of had a moment where I realized if my son didn't get something good in his body, if I didn't fix what was going on, it could potentially be worse in the long run. And so I start digging. And as a mom, you mama bear mode activated, you know, and you kind of figure out what's wrong with my kid. How do I fix it? And when you start doing a lot of digging and you try and solve some problems, you know, some realizations come into play and you start to see what they're eating and what they're not eating. And as a result of that, what they're lacking, and then how their body is communicating what they're lacking. And I started just kind of filling in the nutritional gaps of my then toddler. And as a result of that and seeing what his body was really missing, completely changed his health. And to this day, haven't had an issue since.
So there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of food companies that push products that have all kinds of things. When you read the ingredients that you can't even pronounce, was it pretty enlightening for you? And did it scare you?
Well, yeah, but I think what it did for me, at the very beginning, like a lot of people, you start to see what you are putting in your body, in your children's bodies, and you're kind of just doing it, leaning into things that you're marketed to, you know, you're marketed to with certain products, and you just assume that they're good for your kids because they tell you that they are, you know, things like Pediasure and filling them with protein shakes as kids to get them to grow and all these things. And you don't know enough to know to look at ingredient lists and think, well, what is actually in this? You know, they're telling you that it's good for them, but what is in it? And it's not until they start to have some digestive health concerns and things that put up a flag in your head and go, well, wait a second. You know, so it prompts you to look at those ingredients, and then you start, you know, one by one, start going through that list and go, that's not a real food. No wonder it's causing problems. So then it's just that ripple effect into, well, if this is happening to my kid, maybe it's happening to other kids. And then therein lies, you know, going back to school and learning what you can learn to help as many people as you can.
Okay, so let's fast forward ahead a little bit. And you started doing this research. When did it finally dawn on you that, hey, I could spread this message to other people and make this a career of spreading this message?
Well, you know, as a parent, as soon as your kids start getting older and they're in sports, they're in activities, they're in, you know, different extracurricular activities, you start building relationships with other parents, and then your conversations evolve into, yeah, my kid is going through the same thing. My kid's experiencing this. My kid is picky. And you start to have really similar redundant conversations with parents that are experiencing similar issues with their kids. Maybe they're really picky. Maybe they don't feel good. Maybe they have allergies. Maybe they're not putting on healthy weight. Maybe they're not performing on the field. Maybe they're not being able to focus in school. You know, all of these similar conversations and stories that I realized, you know, a lot of parents are going through similar struggles with the health of their kids, and therefore in how they're performing, you know, whether, like I said, in sports or in school, and then behaviorally, you know, when they're not fed properly, they act out. It's kind of like that term hangry. Kids get hangry when they are not fed properly. Their behavior suffers. So once I realized that I wasn't alone in the struggle of nourishing my children, then you start to realize, okay, if I can learn enough to help guide somebody else in that journey of healing for their kids, then maybe that's where I'm meant to be. And I slowly realized that.
What I would like to do is find out what foods are good for the body, what foods are good for the mind, in talking about performance also, because I do want to pick Tyler's brain on this a little bit as well. I know that he's not just another pretty face, that he actually has something to contribute here. So Tyler, let's talk about some foods, and let's talk about how certain foods can make the difference between being very lethargic physically and being at peak performance.
Well, Vince, behind every good man is an even greater woman. And I'll tell you, she's a wealth of knowledge and is just so precise in what she learns and how she disseminates this information. And I'll tell you, when we talk about peak performance, and with two young boys, we talk about sports cars a lot. And we talk about what type of sports car do you want to have? What kind of sports car is your body? And then what type of fuel would you put into that sports car? And my boys have very expensive sports car taste. So we talk about, you look at somebody like Tom Brady. I mean, my gosh, here we go, the GOAT. He's not out there eating these marketing protein bars and throwing back, the G word, the Gatorade drinks, things of that nature. So we talk about plant-based proteins. We look at the micronutrients, we look at macronutrients. I'll let Jen get into a little bit more of those too, but there is a direct correlation between how you perform and what type of fuel is in your body, not necessarily the time of performance, but how you fueled your body 24 to 48 hours previous to that activity. I'll have Jen again talk about some electrolyte drinks, some good of snack brands. We can go through some pregame meals, some post-practice meals, but it hands down. I mean, I know how I feel when I'm properly fueled. I think 2 weeks ago, I came home from a training session, just myself at the park. And I said, boy, that training session was a direct correlation to how poorly I was nourished the last 2 days. And I could put my finger on the pulse of, I didn't consume
pizza and beer.
It wasn't too far from that, Vince.
Okay. All right. We have to, engage our audience and let them understand that you're a human being too. So
God.
You're not,
Absolutely.
We're not perfect.
But oh my gosh, far from it. But like Jen said earlier, it's, you are a result of what you practice, and your body will be your biggest indicator as to what it wants and doesn't want.
Okay. All right. So Jen, let's talk about the mind. What are some brain foods?
Protein.
Okay.
Well, and that's a little easier said than done, especially with kids. Kids are picky. Kids are hard to feed sometimes, depending on that age. It's going to take 15 or 20 introductions of something for a kid to actually enjoy it, right? So it's, you can't hand a kid, a plate full of chicken and broccoli like you would an adult and expect him to perform and eat it all, right? So with parents, and when we're talking about athletes, when we're talking about performing in school and getting that proper brain function, with my kids are 6 and 9, they're not teenagers. So they're still formative. They're still very picky. They're still a little challenging to feed sometimes, but I need to make sure that I'm giving them what I know their brain needs. So I pick, and I'm talking to parents, I pick a small list of foods I know my kids are going to eat that I know is going to feed their brain. But the most important thing I think for parents to understand is that this isn't about, calorie counting for kids. This isn't about a diet program from kids. This is about understanding that in order for their little bodies to use what you're giving them in the food, the nutrients in the food, it can't just be one thing. We got protein, fats, and carbs, right? You can't just give them a plate of protein and expect their body to use that protein. The protein needs the fat needs the carbohydrate, right? It needs all three. So whenever we feed our kids, even if it's a snack, having all three on that plate in some capacity is going to help their body assimilate those nutrients to get where they need to go, primarily their brain, their muscles, their organs. So if we're just handing them, one chicken nuggets on a plate, their body's only going to use that a little bit, and then they're going to be hungry in 30 minutes. And parents listening to this that know they give their kids chicken nuggets and then they're hungry 30 minutes later, it's because they didn't get something well-rounded enough to satiate them. We talk about something for the brain. We talk about, B12 is that buzz vitamin, that buzz mineral that's going to help with brain function for kids. And we get our B12 in our meat products. Well, if you've got a picky eater that's not eating meat, or they're not going to eat hamburger, or they're not going to eat meatballs or whatever, you've got to figure out a way to get that in them. With my pickiest eater, I give them a B12 supplement. I make sure that they take their vitamins. So I try and get it in there somehow. If I know that they were picky the last several days and they don't have that nutrient in them, I figure out a way to get it in, and we make it fun, whether it's in a vitamin or, something else. So B12 for sure. But when we have a well-rounded plate for kids, they're getting what they need. Their body's using what it needs, and it's putting it where it needs to go.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What's a typical healthy diet, breaking down each meal? And is there, second part of my question, is there too much of a good thing? So first part.
Well, so breakfast gets tricky. And you say breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and is there too much of a good thing? Yes, with breakfast, it is really easy to get too much sugar in. It's really, really easy for kids to have their favorite cereal, whether it's pancakes and syrup or whatever it is that they want in the morning. They want it because it's full of sugar. They want that fruity cereal and milk because it's full of sugar. They don't know that. It tastes good, but it's full of so much sugar. I mean, their little body shouldn't be getting more than 45, 50 grams of sugar in a day, and you're getting that in one bowl of cereal, right? So if we're paying attention to that, then we can provide them with an alternative. And like in my house, if it's not available, they can't eat it. So we don't buy the sugary cereals. We don't buy the juice drinks, the fruit juices. We don't buy that stuff because if it's not in the fridge, they can't eat it. So, healthy breakfasts that aren't going to be loaded with sugar, you're looking at some Greek yogurt and fresh fruit. And to offset that bitterness of a Greek yogurt, you put some honey in it, so you can do rice cakes. You can do, fruit and granola. My kids love to have a bowl of fruit with a little bit of honey on it. Our youngest will, even possibly do some peanut butter on it. You can make breakfast healthier and not have it loaded with artificial sugars. Don't just hand them a plate of pancakes because they need carbs and to fill their belly in the morning. They're hungry 30 minutes later. The body's overloaded with sugar. They're going to sit down at school or go and play sports. Their body's not going to function properly. Their brains are going to be foggy. They're going to be exhausted when they get home. We got to feed them better.
Thanks so much, Jen and Tyler Mayer, for the Fitness Minute with Tyler Mayer. But I said we got a 2-for-1 this week in introducing the holistic nutritionist specialist here, Tyler's wife, Jen. Jen, thank you so much for coming on. We'll talk to you real soon.
It's baby steps, and it's the one missing equation to being the healthiest version of you that's out there. We can get somebody stronger by resistance training, but you've got to do the work on the nutrition side as well. You bet, you guys. So glad you're listening, and keep moving.
The Fitness Minute is brought to you by Fix Body Group with locations in San Diego and Phoenix. Go to fixbodygroup.com.
Carving out time in your afternoon for the Doug Gottlieb Show right here on KDUS AM 1060, 100.7 HD2, and KDUS1060.com. Weekdays from 1 to 3 p.m.
Hey, this is ASU Sun Devil lacrosse coach Tim McCormick, and you are listening to the Varsity Sports Show on AM 1060 KDUS, Arizona.